Today we are going to paint with Zorn palette, which is generally white, yellow, red and blue. Here blue is ivory black. So we have three primaries, yellow, red and blue, and the white. So, and we will use this palette to first to premix the general values, the value scale. I look at my reference and I squint, and first I want to mix the shadows. And for the shadows, I think we need two values. One will be one will be warmer, and other will be slightly colder. So let's start with warm one. By the way, this is original Zorn palette, the real one. Lead white, yellow ochre, vermilion and bone black. Okay, I mix the red and the black and I add a little bit of yellow, and I think it is darkest brown which I can get without using transparent oxide red or ultramarine and so on. So from this set of colors, this will be my darkest dark. And it is really warm color. Temperature is quite warm here. So I take a little bit of this. Maybe I have to mix even more. It is always better to have more paint in premixtures than the less you will have to mix it one more time, and we don't want to do it. Okay. So from that dark I take a little bit, some part, and I add some yellow to make it slightly lighter, and also it will make this mixture slightly greener, and the green is complementary to the red, so it is getting paler and less saturated. So it looks lighter and colder than this brown. So let's say I have another dark here, maybe. Yeah. Now I want to be careful and to place my darks and my lights with a separation, to have some space in between. Okay. So let's say I have these two darks. Let me expand it a little bit here. Yeah, they look quite different. Maybe a little bit more here. Okay. It is still much darker than the mid-tone of my palette, so I can compare. Now I look into my reference to try to find out the most prominent areas of the lights. Which temperature should I mix? First I look into the transition, and the transitional value in some parts it is green and in some parts it is red. So I think I can just take my red and my yellow, put some white into it, and now we'll try to achieve some neutral halftone, and it looks almost the same value as my palette, so let's say the value is okay. So I add a little bit of red here. So this value is lighter than these two, and it is also quite saturated. So, and I've seen some nice greens as well in the transitions. So with adding yellow and a little bit of blue primary here, I can mix some really pale but also yes, this will work. So because I see some greens in the beard area and in the eyebrows, so yes, let's keep this too. And for the lights, when I look into the lights, I see some pinks. So mostly I see colder versions of these two. So we will need pink. And to mix pink, we take white, we take red, and we take just a little amount of black here. So this will be lighter halftone. Too much. So we take more white here. Now it is really blue. And I'm going to mix a lot of this light paint here, light mixture. I think one of the biggest drawbacks of LED white is that it is really weak. So the tinting power and the power of changing value is not so strong in this white, so we have to use a lot of it. But it has some other qualities which I like. Transparency and also viscosity of the paint. Okay, we have some pink, some pale dirty pink, a little bit of red here to make it more interesting, more white again. So it's almost like in previous exercise with the values, but this time we premix two temperature versions of each value group, each value range, the shadows, the halftones, transitions, and the lights. So I have this cold red, and also I see some pale light yellows over there. This is not exactly pale, so we add more white, and we add a little bit of black as well. So now I have 3 groups, and for each group I have variety in temperatures and in saturation. But I will not just probably I will mix here and there some varieties of each mixture. I put my timer on 30 minutes. Don't want to spend more time on that. I want to see how I can describe the planes of the head now, with not only with values but also with the temperatures. So let's begin. A little bit of mineral spirits, and as usual I take just my shadow mixture to begin with. The same as with the previous exercise, it is for understanding of the planes. We are not trying to be totally perfect here, but what we really want is to have the symmetry and the general logic of construction of the head. This is evergreen brush from Rosemary. As far as I know, it is the same technology as ivories. They just have this green color, which is quite fancy, I believe. Okay, so the shadow mass. Eye socket. And I squint and I think that I can just cover the shadow here. So the separation, the core shadow is there. So somehow I put it here, and I compare the design of the eye socket with this shadow shape and with this cast shadow shape from the nose. Squint even more to simplify. Opposite eye socket, and in this reference the brow is really big and dark shape, so I just consider it as a part of the shape of eye socket which I see, so it helps a lot. And the timer is not for the speed, it is not to force myself to create like very fast and impressive portrait. It is just to have control over my decisions and how I spend my time. So if I cannot build this quick understanding, quick meditation on planes in half an hour, it means that probably I've spent too much time on the details. So I have to reconsider my vision. And my priorities. So I just squint and I want to simplify everything. So I combine these shapes, all of them together. Just remove this paint here, also there, and this one, yeah, just to indicate the center line. Something even here. So this plane here between the nose and the cheekbone structure, this part, I have the symmetrical plane there as well. So I think I have to find it later. So now I feel both dark plane of the cheek and the beard all together. I see it as one plane. And this beard here. And let's say we see the cast shadow here as well. So I use mineral spirits just to make paint more fluid. I squeezed a little bit of oleo gel here as well, but I don't know if I am going to use it or not, just in case. So checking the center line. Okay, here. The overall gesture of the brows here. Indication of the ear, and so this is the shadow shapes. And now it is more or less in the place. The shadows are in the place. I will use this brush for the shadows, and I have another one, the ivory, number 4. I will use it for the light. So I will try to keep just 2 brushes. And the evergreen brush is long filbert number 6. Okay. Transitions. I see very warm reddish half tone there, and I can even just go into the shadows with the red to indicate it here. Where else I see reds? Here. So now I just want to place the transitional value here. So the same as with the previous exercise, I know that this transitional tone should be the next from the shadow. So all I have to deal with is the edges and the temperatures of this transitional tone. The red here. I add some yellow in between because I see half tone, this plane of the nose is yellower. I squint and I see that the value is the same, almost the same as this transition halftone, so I just add a little bit of yellow here and I see how it works now. Let's take some greener transition, which I see there. Probably it is too dark, a little bit of yellow. So I'm not trying to always to jump into the white for lightening my tones, especially when I have dark mixtures or halftone mixtures. First I use yellow to raise the value a little bit, and if the yellow is too strong, I will need to add a little bit of black to compensate. So here the transitional tone is reddish. Okay. Here, and there. My center of interest is this symmetrical planes. So we will go and analyze them. Also, here in the lower part of the eye socket, I see reddish, pinkish transitions. Now I clean my brush with a paper towel and I want to mix this area, and this will be colder. Something in between of these two. So I take transitional reddish mixture and mix it with my pink light mixture to see how it transforms, how I can build this transition here. I also see some yellows in between, just a little bit here for variety. And just to indicate the lightest light, I will just add first the pink, because I see a lot of reds here in this light plane. And after, some pale yellows on the side. Let's take a little bit of medium here to cover it quicker, faster. Okay. And now I take this pale yellow, which I see on the left side of the head there, and I apply it here. Now this plane and that plane, they are light halftones. And now what I want is to separate this side from that side, the same as it here. And we can do it with the temperature. So I take my two lights of different temperatures, and to begin with I just place these two planes. I just place these values there. A little bit of mineral spirits. Okay. I need to add some reds. I think here. And there. So it is not the real color, but it is a map of temperatures. The same as we do in stage 2 of longer portrait. Let's mix some lights here, the lightest plane. I see it quite cold, so pink will work for this purpose. And small change of the plane here in the yellow zone. Now I've indicated this plane gradation from more yellower part to the more reddish part there. I think it is time to place this value as well. So it is darker than these lights, but it is lighter than transitional halftones. So I just mix, and you see I am already creating the pool of halftones here. It should be lighter, something like this. Erase, I mean wipe off my brush to clean the previous mixture. And small gradation here. So the core shadow here is described with the three values: the shadow value, the transitional halftone, and the halftone in the light. But what is really important is to have this plane darker than that plane, that the complementary plane. Continue with the nose. And for now it's just like this. Something light. and saturated here. So this exercise, it is not even a sketch. I consider it as a study. So now I have the gradation of the lights here on my palette already, so I just can pick up most suitable variant and apply it, and I know that the value will be correct here. Okay, now I want to mix a little bit of this part. It should be warmer, and I mix it from the lighter part of the shadow values, from the lightest. I keep this darkest brown, this clean. I want it to be clean and ready to be used as dark accent. So here we have lighter and more saturated greenish orange. And I am talking of what I see when I squint. I now ignore the highlights and some lights in the beard, because it is so easy to be distracted by the lights. And here it's just this green transitional tone in the beard here. This is the plane which catches the light. So it is a box. So separation. Little bit of red here to indicate the lips without painting the lips. And again, I just grab some transitions or lights, and I just place the planes here and there accordingly. Too dark. And this eye socket, I just see it as one shape, so I don't care about the inner structure of eye socket. So let's just bring back the symmetry. Okay. Now I need need some pinks for the ear. And a little bit of here, this little plane of the shadow. I have a few more minutes to work on these planes. They're really interesting for me. And again, I want to find this, I want to emphasize this, to increase this effect. I take now a lighter and colder mixture for of the shadows to paint some transition from the beard here. Another accent. So I want it to be really, to look like a blocking. I want it to be rigid and obvious. It is not about subtle details or some small shapes. It is about the map of the head, the map of the values, of the planes of the head. It is why I constantly squint. Okay, just a little bit of white. And yes, you can practice with titanium white, of course, and I really recommend to work with titanium because it is not so toxic as lead white, and also because the lead white requires a little bit of practice in the paint application and mixture. It can be slightly confusing to work with lead after titanium. So the symmetry. Now I have the separation of the planes created only with a temperature. Pale yellow here and desaturated pink there. They create an illusion of the changes of the planes, but the value is still the same or close. And now the lightest light here, because the forehead is reflecting more light. A separation in the nose and the highlight here in this structure, and it is all. So this was a 30 minutes, half an hour exercise of building the form with the temperatures. I recommend to do at least a couple of such exercises with different references to see the ability of turning of the form not only with the values but also with the different temperatures.